Unacceptable fringe. 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 Unacceptable fringe.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Welcome to Friday Night Fringe here on the channel for our first official Friday Night Fringe stream, despite last week's was more of a test run. Hope you guys had a wonderful week. What a week it's been, and boy, this channel has been absolutely crazy. I want to take a second to thank each and every person who's not only been here from the beginning, but has elevated this channel this last week. Almost 3,000 subs in the last 10 days. It's been unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on our way to 18,000 subscribers here on the channel. So make sure if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, click it now. Join our large fringe majority. Thank you to everybody who's been watching the videos. What a week for views. What a week for everything. What a week in politics. And we're going to jump into it. But before we get started, folks, just like always on our old Sunday night streams, let's get a roll call going. Let's see if we can get one person from every province in the country in here. Throw your info up in the chat. Let me know where you're coming in from. Xylo, jumping into the stream, getting fringy on Friday nights. Absolutely. We got Blackface Son of Castro. Welcome to the stream. Friday Night Fringe. Looking forward to the show from the secret Trudeau bunker in Annapolis Valley, Nova Scotia. Welcome into the stream. Hopefully you didn't get too buried in snow. Vikram's coming in. Unacceptable fringe majority. Absolutely. Welcome in, Vikram. It's great to see you. Mike TV Dub jumping in. Welcome, Friday Night Unhinged Fringers. There we go. Welcome in. It's going to be a good night. We got a lot to talk about tonight. I've got build up. I'm so excited. Vikram Singh, like we want our lives back. Welcome into the stream. We got the Frozen Canadian. Welcome into the stream. Great to see you in here. We've got Gayton coming in. Make Canada great again. Couldn't agree more. I hope I pronounced that name properly. Welcome into the stream. We got the Romanian Patriot jumping in as always. Greetings, dear friends at Unacceptable Fringe. Welcome into the stream. Great to see you. Random Stuff has jumped in. Welcome into the stream. We got Patty jumping in. I take it as a personal insult for Blackface to say he knows what Canadians want. We want an election. That is a video that's going to be coming up this week, but we will get into a little bit of that tonight. Boy, I was just baffled when I saw that earlier today, but hey, let's continue on. Stringer coming in from Hamilton, Ontario. Welcome into the stream. Great to see you again. Mystical coming in live from right behind you. Please don't say that. Welcome into the stream. We got Frank's Handyman coming in. I press start. There you go. Well, welcome into the Fringe. It's good to see you here. We've got I Am Canadian coming in from New Brunswick. I almost said Nova Scotia. Vikram's coming in from Quebec City. We've got Sharon Cook jumping in from Calgary. Welcome into the stream, everyone. We've got Dickard with Dave too, Calgary and on Buongiorno. I'm guessing that's supposed to say, or Bon Gordo. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. But welcome into the stream. God, what a day. Gordon's jumped in from Three Hills. Welcome into the stream. We've got Sean jumping in from Oshawa. We've got Trevor coming in from Carbon, Alberta. Welcome into the stream. Lorraine Din coming in saying, love your channel, love your books. The libs are having a meltdown. Hi from Newfoundland. Lorraine, I love that you come into this channel and I love that you love our books. Thank you for joining us here on the stream. It's great to see you in here. Frank's coming in with Elliott Lake, Ontario. We've got Kaylee McIntyre coming in from New Brunswick. Welcome into the stream. Mike Freedom Honey, I just came for the punch and pie. I just came in for the punch and pie. Welcome into the stream, Mike. It's good to see you, guy. I haven't done an Eric Cartman in years, but welcome into the stream. Janice coming in from Vancouver, BC. We've got the Mighty Canuck. Love the books. Thanks, Derek, from Nanaimo. I'm very blessed and humbled that you enjoy them so much. Thank you for coming into the stream. It's great to see you in here. We've got Brett coming in from Vancouver Island. We've got Chris Archer. Has anyone here ever heard of Salty Cracker? Absolutely. Who doesn't love Salty Cracker? Welcome into the stream. It's good to see you. We got Raven coming in from Calgary. We've got Colin Gunn. It's me again. Welcome into the stream. Great to see you, Colin. Nice to have you back here. Tammy Eldridge coming in from Elliott Lake, Ontario. As always, Tammy, such a loyal viewer. Thank you for joining us for Friday Night Fringe. It's nice being in this space. I'm happy to be here tonight. This is going to be a good stream. Looking forward to it. Non-compliant Canadian coming in again from Eastern Ontario. Welcome into the stream. Great to have you here. We've got Leighton coming in from Calgary. You've got my vote. We're going to get into that shortly because there's a lot to discuss in terms of the recall of failed woke mayor Jody Gondek. T. Rich coming in from the mountains of Alberta. Glorious, gorgeous Rocky Mountains. Welcome into the stream. Gordon, I think there will be a spring election. I do think there's going to be a spring election. I've been saying it for quite some time, but we're going to get into that too. There's a lot to get covered tonight. Roman Patriot feels the same way. And again, we'll get into that. We've got Wayne coming in from Moortown, Ontario. We've got Richard coming in from Saltcote, Saskatchewan. Welcome into the both of you. Is it pronounced nature or nature? Bell Media. No accountability, planned exit. We're gonna talk about that as well. There's so much to talk about tonight. It's gonna be a packed stream, ladies and gentlemen. Raise a hallelujah coming in from Chatham, Kent, North Ontario. Or I don't know if that's North Ontario. Is that North Ontario? I think it is. I could be wrong, but welcome into the stream. I haven't been in Ontario in a long time, aside from my plane trip to Ottawa last year. But the furthest I used to go was about Kenora, all the way to Thunder Bay. So I could be mistaken if I've got that wrong. I apologize. And coming in, signing in from Red Deer, briefly. Oh, come on. You got to be here for more than a brief minute. Random stuff coming in. welcome into the stream. I need some Make Canada Great Again merch. There's tons of it. In fact, you should head over to Canadians for Truth. My good friend Theo Fleury's got some of that stuff. I'm not sure if he sells it online. Let me figure that out. I'll see if I can find that before the end of the show. We'll look it up together here on the stream. See if we can get some stuff thrown Theo's way. Derek Macbeth coming in. Hey, Derek from the other Derek. It's the army of Dereks here. Welcome into the stream, Derek. Good to have you in again. We've got Tony coming in, Cambridge, Ontario. Blackface son of Trudeau, or Castro. I'm already off my rocker. Smash that like button, everybody. Get it out there. Get it in the algorithm. Every time you hit that like button, it pumps us out there for everybody to see and tells people that, hey, if you like politics, if you like watching some insane guy yap from his arcade, this is the place to come in. This is where to hear it from. So make sure to hit that like button. Help get us out in the algorithm. Jennifer coming in from Vancouver Island. Welcome into the stream. We got Francine. A lot of new names I'm seeing in here tonight. Spring election, we need Gibbons, Alberta. Welcome into the stream from Gibbons. Great to see you in here. Ladies and gents, I'm going to have to skip past a lot of these. There's a lot of people chiming in, and our roll call is bigger than ever tonight. So thank you so much for getting in the roll call. But we're going to have to get onto the stream because, boy, do we have a lot to get into. First off, I want to talk a little bit about a video that I dropped this afternoon. So if you follow the channel's videos or if you're alerted when videos are dropping, I put out a video today talking about Tucker Carlson's interview with President Vladimir Putin. Now, at the beginning of the video, I made a statement that he sat down with, I said, what is it I said? Leader slash dictator, Vladimir Putin. Now, when I made that comment, I tried to make it sound as sarcastic as I could, because what I was actually doing was comparing him to what Justin Trudeau and others have compared him to in results of the Ukraine. And I guess a lot of people in the comments didn't really understand that I was being sarcastic. So I didn't want that to reflect. I can assure you guys, I'm very well aware that he's a president. He's not a dictator. But I've snipped that out of the video. So I guess I should probably, in hindsight, practice to be a little more sarcastic, a little bit better, or at least be a little more exaggerated the next time I do that. So my apologies to anybody who thought I was calling President Putin a dictator by any means, because I think it's incredible that Tucker Carlson sat down with him. I think it's incredible Tucker took the time to sit down in Alberta with Danielle Smith, as well as Dr. Jordan Peterson, a friend of the channel, and many others, to hear about the current state of our country and to talk to Vladimir Putin about the state of the Ukraine, and also point out the flaws of the Canadian government inviting Waffen SS soldiers into the House of Commons to give them a standing ovation. But one video that I put out this week that I really want to address, and that I want to address early on in the stream, a lot of people were talking about Jyoti Gondek, failed woke mayor Jyoti Gondek, and this recall to kick her ass out of office. First off, I'm going to say that anybody who's got their hopes up in the air, it's going to be a very uphill battle. So I wanted to shed some light on that. So when Jason Kenney installed the ability to recall leaders, I wanted to go over a few rules and regulations of those, as well as where this may cause a problem for running in a future election. When recall legislation was put in place, what it essentially says is that half of our registered voters in whichever municipality or provincial ridings that you're recalling on have to sign said petition, and it has to be done in person with identification, I guess, because they don't want mail-in, they don't want manipulation, they don't want any risk of tampering with votes, which a lot of people were complaining about it. I can stand behind it. I can say I understand why they would put those things in place. But in order for Jyoti Gondek to get ejected or recalled, I believe it's around 450,000 signatures that are going to be required. Now, a lot of people would say 450,000 signatures isn't that much in a city like Calgary. Well, Calgary's a population of 1.7 million people. And what you have to remember is that this woke installed mayor, she was installed, was put in office with a mere 175,000 votes. So you would need almost more than double the required signatures on a petition in person for her to be ejected from office. Ejected is a good word. Ejected to me, look, it's not a simple recall. It's not like, hey, we got buyer's remorse. It's get the hell out. If you have to go to the extremes of enacting recall legislation, it should be, I don't know, you guys remember that Monopoly card that used to say go directly to jail and had the boot kicking the Monopoly guy? That's what it should look like when that's all said and done. The problem with recall legislation is that there's 60 days to sign this petition to recall. Again, roughly 400,000 signatures are required. And again, I just don't see it coming to fruition. Now, hopefully it does. A lot of people are calling for it, and I would like to see a recall done just so that the people of Calgary could get a break. The major problem that I am going to run into, should this be done, is if Jyoti Gondek is recalled, what you have to remember is that they don't hold a regular election when that happens. They hold what's called a by-election. By-elections are done very swiftly. Now, in Calgary, and a lot of people have asked me on stream, hey, how do I donate to your campaign? How do I get involved with things? How do we get things moving? The biggest problem when it comes to rules in order to put yourself on the ballot to run for mayor in Calgary, you need, I believe it's 100 signatures, but you're not allowed to even petition for your nomination papers until January 1st of said election year. So meaning I'm not actually allowed to put my name on the ballot, or at least begin the process to put my name on the ballot, until January 1st of 2025. That being the problem is that once an election is called, even if it's a by-election in Calgary, I would have to submit to retain the nomination papers, and then I would have to get my 100 signatures, and then I would have to register to get my name on the ballot before I can take a single cent in fundraising to run a campaign. And the biggest problem with a by-election is that they're ran very quickly. This isn't something that's going to be dragged out over a couple of months or notice for people to get on those ballots. I would be very lucky if that paperwork were filed in enough time for me to run, let alone regain any attempt at fundraising or running a manageable campaign. So essentially, if Jody Gondek is recalled, unfortunately, I think that's going to take my name out of the running to be mayor, unless they give adequate time for other candidates other than current councillors in City Hall to get their names in and run and to raise funds. Part of the problem is, despite the fact that How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom has sold over 100,000 copies countrywide, a lot of people in Calgary still don't know who I am. And in order to run an effective campaign, I need time, which is one thing I was looking forward to with next year. If I have my name on a ballot as early as February of next year, by the time the paperwork's done, the nomination work is finished, I have essentially 7 months to rally around Calgary, to get people to know who I am, to go to events, to put my name out there, to get my name out there. The last thing I would ever want to do is scramble to take people's money to run a campaign that essentially isn't worth the time to run if there was a recall. And I'm supporting the recall. Let's get that first and foremost. I'm not suggesting that Jody Gondek should stay in office so that I can run. I think Calgary needs a break. I think Calgarians need a break. The problem that I have is that if she's recalled, and I've warned about this in other videos, I think we're just going to get more of the same old boys. You might get somebody who's more conservative, somebody like Dan McLean, who we've talked about to great extent on this channel. The problem with a guy like Dan McLean is he was busted calling into a council meeting from a golf course last year while he's out with real estate developers. So this is just another guy who's looking for the benefits, the high paycheck, and the perks rather than what Calgarians need. So while I think that it's effective for Jody to get the boot, we may see some form of a break, but I don't think it's going to be the break everybody thinks we're going to get if other candidates were able to get the time to run. So it's he's the future mayor of Calgary. I just get Tucker to endorse you. I'd love to get Tucker to endorse me, and the possibilities are, I know Theo Fleury is really good friends with Tucker. I'm sure we could work something like that out. But first off, I would never ask Theo to do something like that. But in the same aspect, it's not about endorsements. To me, the importance of running for mayor of Calgary is to change this city. I've seen a drastic change, and I've only been here for roughly, 27 years? I moved here from Winnipeg in my teens, and the city has changed ridiculously, not just in growth and not just culturally, but in terms of the last 8 years. When you look at everything that Naheed Nenshi did to this city, and then you look at everything that Jody Gondek's brought into the city from woke standpoints in terms of overtaxation, reckless spending, woke ideologies, and poor policies, and oppression on citizens, I might add. And look at this bag bylaw that's going on. A lot of people say, hey, I pay for a bag when I go to Walmart. I do these things. Drive-throughs should not be charging you for a bag. It's ludicrous. We're going to have to figure out something that's going to work for Calgarians. And the whole reason I threw my name into the ring after meeting Dr. Peterson and hearing his speech about how change comes at the municipal level, that the municipal level is what affects people's lives more than provincial. It affects people's lives more than federal for the most part. Um, my wife sat with me and said, I've been here my whole life. And I don't feel like Calgary's the same town, and I don't feel like it's a place where I can raise my kids anymore. I don't feel like they're safe. My wife asked me if we could move, if we could leave, and I love this city. I love I love the atmosphere. I love Stampede season. I love everything about this town. Um, but I don't think my wife has it in her to wait another 4 years if there's a by-election for me to run a serious race. So that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything as of now, but what I'm stating is that if Jody Gondek is to be recalled, I will state now that there is a very high possibility that I will not be able to run in that by-election. And I'll keep people up to date on that. Hopefully, if Jody Gondek is kicked out of office, then we do see some significant change for Calgarians. The biggest problem with this petition to recall Jody Gondek is that if it fails, you cannot put forward another petition for recall, which means if it fails, she's allowed to stay in office until the next election, which again, I'm almost grateful for because that gives me time to ramp up and get out there and do what I said I was going to do. But we'll see. Now, T Rich is coming in. You know, Derek, it's okay if you move, you do you. I will do me. But here's the thing is that my wife and I love Calgary. My wife's been here her whole life. I came here from Winnipeg and I absolutely love this city. So the city isn't the problem. It's the way that it's working. The crime, the over cost of living, the taxation on people. It's too much. So we're getting to a point where I said to my wife, if you don't want to leave, if you had a choice, you know, if it could be fixed, would you want to stay? She says, absolutely. I love this city. So I said, then I'll fix it. For our kids, for her, I'll fix it. There's no parent on this planet that wouldn't give the shirt off their back for their kids. And when I announced I was going to run for mayor, a lot of people, I remember running into Marty up north the following weekend and he says, oh, there's the future mayor. And I says, yeah. And he says, I can't believe you ran for mayor. And I said, you wouldn't? He says, not in a million years. Because he knows what comes with politics. He's a smart man. But I did it for my wife and my kids. And that's who I'm running for in this city is every family that has children that want it to be safer, that whether you have children or not, people who want to be able to go out and get on the train or ride transit or walk downtown without fear of some kind of crime or drug use being performed in front of them or them being a part of it. I want to make sure that people can afford to live in this town and enjoy their lives. We get one spin on this earth. I'd like people to feel like they're able to enjoy it a little bit instead of always working to pay for governments to enjoy the high life. That's just me. Roman Patriot coming in with a $3 super sticker. Thank you so much. It's Joe Lyman chiming in. It's not impossible. It only needs 60%, 63% of the vote. Yeah, I get that it's not impossible, but it's the processing time I worry about. And getting paperwork, the bureaucracy would be a bit of a stint. What do we got here? What I saw David chiming in, Calgary is the most affordable housing place in Canada. Well, so Calgary typically has lower property taxes than other cities. Calgary's housing market, in comparison to cities like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, even some parts of places of Winnipeg. I've seen Winnipeg, when I've gone back to visit, be more expensive for housing than certain portions or certain places in Calgary. But when I talk about unaffordability, I'm talking about the cost of goods mixed in with property taxes, mixed in with your mortgage payments, mixed in with gasoline, mixed in with, and people still say, well, gas is cheaper here than it is elsewhere in the country. That's true. But what I'm saying is it's too damn high everywhere in the country, not just Calgary. It's too high for everyone. This is what we see argued in the House of Commons like cannon fodder every day when idiots like Jagmeet Singh stand up and say, "Oh, you got to go after these greedy CEOs." No, we need to go after the greedy representatives that are standing in the House of Commons, um, that are gatekeeping our prosperity and swallowing up all of our available funds. I don't know. I remember being a kid and seeing my father be able to take his paycheck. And now we had a household where my mother stayed home. My mom was able to stay home and raise two children. And my father went to work all day, up until he formed his own business from home and then worked from home. But regardless, he still had enough money after his paychecks to say, I'm going to put a little bit into RSPs or investments or rainy day fund or vacation fund. And like I played hockey my whole life. And nowadays, I don't know how parents could even afford to put their kids in, extracurricular sports like hockey. Um, but my parents would always say, you're going to do something in the winter, you're going to do something in the summer. You got to pick a sport. And nowadays, I see parents just working two jobs in order to make sure that there's food on the table. That's a show of where the government has gone in 30 years. That the government used to skim money off the. Let's get it clear. There was never any pure government here that did their job properly. But I had a friend I was talking to that said, I miss the days where the government used to skim off the top and we were none the wiser. Nowadays, it's the government looks at us as nothing more than a battery farm. They say, well, you're going to go to work, you're going to pay your mortgage, and the interest rate's going to be so high that you're going to have just enough money left over to pay your taxes, to pay for your food, which is going to be high priced. You're going to have enough left over to pay for your high priced utilities, your high priced cell phones, your high priced internet. Like it goes on and on to the point where you're going to live check to check no matter what you make. And if you can't afford it, don't worry. The government's going to come out with universal basic income and you'll have just enough to live that you'll need to be so dependent on the government the rest of your lives. That's the problem. That's the problem. Is the government sees us as their funding, their way of life, their ability to enjoy the nicer things while we sit back and work ourselves to the bone. UBI is communism. Not on my watch. It is communism. Joe Lyman, don't move to Red Deer. Housing prices are fine where they are. Well, see, and that's the problem. That's part of what did it for cities like Winnipeg. I used to say to my wife all the time, like back in the early 2000s, when housing here went from $250,000 for the average house to 400,000 overnight, it was due to a material shortage, and we've talked about that on the channel multiple times. But I used to say to my wife, hey, we can move to Winnipeg. I can move back home and we can buy a house with an in-ground pool in the backyard for $200,000, like a 2-story, 2,500 square foot home for 200 grand. And nowadays I go back to Winnipeg and those houses in those neighborhoods are stretching $500,000-$600,000. That's all happened because people left cities like this to move over there and plug their money in there. Supply and demand is the ultimate curb to how housing works in this country. It's a lot of people went east and said, well, it's cheaper. I'll just go there and retire. I can sell my home here and have no mortgage and live the easy life. And look what it's done to pricing of houses. I even notice it in Edmonton. Like you go from Calgary to Edmonton, Edmonton houses are significantly less by about $75,000 to $100,000 less than Calgary on average, depending on where you're looking. Right? It all depends on neighborhoods, but in Calgary, it seems to always be going up. I don't know how people are going to do it. I'm telling you this right now. No house on this planet, unless you're living in like Barbie's dream house, is worth $500,000. People used to buy houses in the 1980s for 50 grand. And I know there's inflation over time, and I know those things, but do you ever remember seeing that? Like, and this is where I go back to being in a household with a stay-at-home mom. A mailman used to be able to work his job, have his wife stay home, raise children, go on vacation, usually every summer, at least somewhere local, pay their bills, have a car in the driveway, buy groceries. I don't care what inflation says. Tell me who can do that nowadays. I'm going to give you a little bit of a wake up on the cost of things. My wife and I, on a combined income, make six figures, low six figures. But we live check to check. That's our mortgage. Now, I'm gonna be very clear when I say that, because a lot of people are gonna say, well, you could get rid of some of the things you have in your life. And a lot of people say, well, you've got arcades behind you, you've got all these things. These arcades, and I've said it before, so I'll just say it to enlighten everybody. I used to collect video games. I sold my collection when the prices went up. All of this stuff behind me was paid for with the profits from that. I've never used our family income to support my hobbies. I've always raised the value, sold, and then got into something else. So anytime I do this stuff is with that money. So it doesn't accumulate into what I'm talking about with the day-to-day living. At six figures, we had to pay school fees. We have to pay our mortgage, our property tax, our utilities, cell phones, internet, the usual that everybody else pays. The problem right now, when we look at our money at the end of the month and we just make it, Now we're talking about extracurricular stuff. We're talking about add-ons, things like that. Like, yeah, I do subscribe to certain platforms. I do spend money in other places. But when it's all said and done, when I say to my wife, where's the problem here? Where's the money going out? Well, we look at her pay stub. And you know what the biggest problem is? 30% of her paycheck goes to taxes, if not more. That's she's making really good money at her job, and 30% of her pay just goes to the government so they can put tampons in bathrooms. That's where I have an issue. The government thinks they have the right to tell you how you can live. The government thinks they have a right to your money. They have a right to your way of life. They have a right to decide that you can't enjoy life while they live in their giant homes. Even Pierre Poilievre lives in a big house right now that's paid for by the Canadian people because he's the leader of the opposition. Now, I'm not going to blame Pierre for that. That comes with the job. That's a perk of the job. But what I'm getting at is that I've never seen a politician struggle to keep the lights on. I've never seen a politician go to work and worry about layoffs or, production or their paycheck. I've never seen them go to work and say, God, I got to do a big renovation at home because the shingles need replacing. My windows need energy efficient windows. There's a lot of things like I don't know how I'm going to make it work. I've never heard of a politician who says, I don't know if I can put my kids in sports this year because it's too expensive. These guys don't deserve 30% of your paycheck. Nothing they do to live in their cushy jobs, which I'm telling you right now, don't take a lot of work in comparison to what the average person does. The guy who scrubs toilets for a living does more work than your MPs. It's Joe Lyman's chimed in $75,000 average wages in Alberta, $55,000 average wages in Toronto. Thank God we are paying Ontario food and housing costs, especially at those wages. Yes. And that's the problem, is even at $75,000, which is getting close to my wife's pay bracket, can't afford to live. You can afford to live, but it's just. Like, I'm talking like you can get your groceries, you can pay your bills, you can pay your mortgage, and when it's all done, you're not breaking a sweat. My wife and I had to talk for the first time a few weeks ago about replacing carpets in the upstairs floor of our house and having to possibly dip into credit for that. We do not do credit. I have no debts in my house other than my mortgage. My credit card is paid off every single month. I live on the principle that you don't spend money you don't have. And that's the same way I'd run the city of Calgary. It's nice to talk about all these great things we could have, but if we don't have the money, it's not happening. We're not going to tax people in order to get it, and we're not going to spend money and take credit and try to get all the nice things and then not be able to afford it at the end of the day. But that's the government. The government wants to tell you how to live. You know how else they want to tell you how to live? We've had a huge uprising this week with Danielle Smith. You guys have been gracious enough to come and watch all of our videos about cut off for talking about Danielle Smith. Oh, there we go. We're back. We're back. There we go. Everybody see me and hear me okay? Let's hopefully we're back. When we talk about Danielle Smith and we talk about um here's carpets are a luxury you don't need. So right now the carpets that are in my upstairs have been there since 1993. And my kids have destroyed them, and we actually had a pipe burst, and it's going to cause mold issues. So it's not really a luxury at this point. It's a necessity. So we had to discuss what has to be done. Anyway, just to clear that up. But Danielle Smith, when we look at Danielle Smith this week, you guys have been great to come and watch those videos and chime in on everything. And of course, everybody has the basic um, want and need to protect kids, that kids should not be taking puberty blockers, that kids shouldn't be mutilating their bodies. I don't see a problem with what Danielle Smith came out with and all the outrage. But of course, she comes out to say we're no longer going to have biological males. I'm not going to say trans women. I don't agree with that. Biological males competing in women's sports. She says there's going to be a separate entity for that because it's unfair. It's unfair. It's cheating. If somebody uses their power over you, so like if I was to example, say, I'm going to have a boxing match, I'm going to have a charity boxing match and show how strong I am, but I'm not going to fight Mike Tyson or Floyd Mayweather because, I mean, hey, they're huge guys. I'll tell you what, I'm going to fight a 10-year-old kid. I have a huge advantage over that child because I'm bigger, I'm stronger, and it's cheating. I'd be cheating to win by saying I can only fight a 10-year-old child. When a biological man says, "Hey, I'm a woman now and I'm going to swim against female swimmers because I can't rank in my own league." That's cheating. They have more muscle mass, they have better bone density, they have more strength. That's just scientific knowledge. So Danielle Smith says, out with that. No more. If you're not allowed to get tattoos, if you're not allowed to drink, if you're not allowed to get cigarettes, if you're not allowed to get married or sign up for the military until you're the age of 18 years old, you shouldn't be allowed to mutilate your body or take questionable medication. And of course, in one of my videos, we pointed that out as BC's Ministry of Health coming out saying that, hey, we don't know how effective or safe these medications or puberty blockers even are today because we have to wait for the first round of people to grow up taking them. Sounds a lot like when they said these things are safe and effective, right? Like it's just so disgusting that we see politicians now like Rachel Notley, who should be gone. I mean, she has no weigh in on this. She's leaving office. And Janice Irwin, the biggest virtue signaling thing in politics. I can't even call it a woman because it's just there. But crying on a microphone because children aren't allowed to chop up their bodies anymore? Give me a break. What people should be worried about, or at least happy about, with this decision is all the wolves in sheep's clothing are coming out in full. They're all coming out in the open and saying, hey, we think that you don't have any rights. The government's going to tell you what's best for your children, and you got to just buck up and deal with it. Nah, not in my backyard. I said it before on stream. I would go to jail for anything if it was to do with my children, to protect my children. And I'll tell you right now, I feel a great swell of pity for anybody from the government who comes to my door thinking they have a say in what my children can and can't do. I'm their father. My wife is their mother, and until they're adults, we will decide. My old man used to have a rule when I was growing up, the golden rule: he who makes the gold makes the rules. Now that would transition over to the government because technically they're the ones who make the gold these days. But the problem is, for as long as you're living under your parents' roof, your parents are responsible for you. Your parents love you. I don't know any homes where I've ever heard a parent say, "I'm not interested in my child." My wife asked me once, "What would you do if your son came home?" Because it all started when we started hearing about this he, she, him, her, z, zer stuff. And she said, "What would you do if one of your kids came home and said they were gay?" I said, "Depends on their age." If my son was 5 and said he was gay, I'd probably say, "What makes you feel that way?" But if they were teens, if they were getting to that age where, I'll use my son for example, where I figure he's going to start getting interested in girls, but he comes home and tells me, "Dad, I'm interested in boys." I'd ask him, "Have you always felt this way? Why do you feel this way?" And I would listen to him. And if I was convinced that that is what made him happy, I would support my son fully, and I would still love him the same. And I know there's homes out there in the very small percentile where that's frowned upon, where it's not allowed, where there's abuse. In any of those situations, it should be reported and dealt with in a legal matter. Um, my heart goes out to any kid who feels they can't be honest with their parents. There was an old saying in the old 1989 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie where Splinter said to this Danny kid, "All fathers love their sons. All parents love their children." I don't know one parent on this planet that says, "I wish that I didn't have my kid. I don't love my kid." Give me a break. And people like Janice Irwin who don't have children. Um, don't- ah, good old Kabooble. Um, I love the jokes. I do. Um, people like Janice Irwin who don't have children think that they have a right to tell you what you can and can't do with your children. We've seen the Liberal government talking about this all week. All week. Marcy Ian blocking me on Twitter because she puts out a video after a press conference saying Justin Trudeau and I were up until the wee hours of the morning consoling children about Alberta's decision for trans youth. Whose children were you up talking to and consoling all night? Did their parents know? Like, that's kind of creepy for one. Second of all, does everybody remember during lockdowns when Justin Trudeau said, "Hey, parents, leave the room so we can talk to your kids"? You remember that cringe moment? Like, whose kids were they consoling and talking to all night? And were their parents okay with the government consoling them and telling them, "That's okay. You can go chop your wiener off. It's no big deal." Like, the first thing I asked Marcy Ian, "Are you going to give puberty blockers to your children?" We know she has young kids. I said, "Are you going to give them to your kids? Are you going to convince your kids to go get gender reassignment surgery?" And then I was instantly blocked. You know why? Because politicians don't believe in the shit they're selling you. This is all virtue signaling. And like Pierre Poilievre said this week, creating wedge issues because they think it's what people want to hear. It's disgusting. But they're all showing you how they're essentially pedophiles, how they're disgusting, enabling monsters to suggest that any of this should be done. And people are saying, "Well, this is the new generation." In the 90s it was baggy pants, and in the early 2000s it was, the skater boy type people, and now it's this. Now trans is the thing, and people are becoming more vocal about how they feel about their sexuality. No, I can tell you exactly why the government is pushing this. Pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceutical companies provide puberty blockers. Healthcare is provided by the government of Canada. All of that gets paid out to the government. The government stands to make a lot of money on puberty blockers, a lot of money on gender reassignment surgery. You don't think that they know that? I am so sick and tired of talking about it, but Justin Trudeau came into office with a $9 million net worth. Does anybody know what his net worth is now? Almost $100 million after 8 years of being in office. And I'll remind you, his pay just went up above $300,000 annually. How is this man making $300,000 a year worth $100 million? Lockdowns. It was all pandemic. Canada owned the patent to the jabs that were given. Justin Trudeau and his cronies made hand over fist, just like they say grocery CEOs are right now. They're mad that grocery CEOs are still making that money and their party's over. So, if we can't do it with lockdowns and pandemics, well, guess what? We're going to do it with trans. We're going to convince kids to go and get this. Parents, tell your kids to stay in the room and you step out for a minute. We're going to convince your kids to do a bunch of irreversible crap to their body so that we can line our pockets, because they're not our kids, because we don't care. We don't care if we destroy your youth. We don't care if we ruin your children's lives, because our pocketbooks are more important to us than anything else. That's exactly what's happened. And Danielle Smith has stood up and said, not in Alberta. If people want to do those things, they can do those things when they're adults. They can do those things when they're confident in themselves, when they're sure of what they want to do, when they're aware of the repercussions of those decisions. And everybody gets mad. How dare they have a choice? How dare they have the right to to do something? Did Jasper Sunshine come in here? I see people, oh, look, there he is. There's Jasper. Welcome into the stream. Good to see you, buddy. Always great to see Jasper Sunshine. Did you know that Jasper Sunshine is the king of thumbnails, by the way? I'm just going to throw that in there because I told him I'd get him back. It's an inside joke, but he's the king of thumbnails, ladies and gentlemen. If you're ever on YouTube and you need help with thumbnails, go and talk to Jasper. He knows everything about thumbnails. He's he's the king of the O face. I prefer Queen. Oh, look, Jasper's identifying. I jest in good nature. Welcome into the stream. It's great to see you here. Okay. Back to what we're talking about. But what was more exciting to see this week, what I was really happy to see finally, and what we reported on the channel as quickly as possible, Pierre Poilievre finally took a stance on where he stands. Now, people have said for ages, look, he's not with that stuff. He doesn't want to be around. He beats around the bush when he says those things. And I understand from a party's perspective, there's a time and a place. And I know that's why they send notices out that say, don't talk about this or don't bring it up. But I also think they should be doing that, because I think it's up to the leader of that party to speak on behalf of the party's stance and to be the first to say where they stand. And I was very grateful to see Pierre Poilievre stand up and flat out say, I don't agree with puberty blockers for kids under the age of 17. It wasn't a beat around the bush. It wasn't word salad. He came straight out and said it. And I'll tell you right then and there, my vote for Pierre Poilievre was solidified the minute he made that comment. Because I've always said, when it comes to politicians, when it comes to, their promises, when it comes to everything that they say they're going to do, can we really trust what they're saying? Can we really stand behind what they're saying? But Pierre Poilievre came out and flat out said, no, I don't agree with it. And he didn't care about the repercussions, because he knows damn well that 98.9% of the country agree with him. He knows he has every right to Canadians to state where he stands. And he did it in glorious fashion. I might add, shutting down reporters. And when you had reporters saying, well, we make the rules, we're the ones who ask the questions, he says, I'm going to answer them the way I see fit. Shut him down. Good to see. I applaud Pierre. Well, Joe's chiming in. He knows damn well because his polls tell him that. It's not just the polls, though. This is a man who has 2 children of his own. I think it's important that they answer those questions. I think it's important they talk about things like that, because you've got people like Marcy Ian again from CTV, who's now left her job as a morning show prostitute to move on to the House of Commons, who sits behind Justin Trudeau with a stone-faced pale look, come out and say, we've been consoling children all night about mutilating their bodies. She has kids. And I got blocked on Twitter for asking her, are you going to give those things to your children? So they should be stating where they stand, not virtue signaling. It's good to see a father who's running to be the next Prime Minister of Canada come out and say, this will not happen under my watch. I don't know what Pierre would do for the rest of the country, because this is a provincial matter, right? That's what a lot of people forget. That's why I don't even understand why the federal government chimed in on what Danielle did. But of course, the Liberals like to kick up sand at everything. It's a provincial matter in terms of the rules and regulations for that specific treatment. So why not just leave it to their jurisdiction? But again, this is why Pierre came right out and said it. It's a wedge issue. It's here to be the next issue of the next election. Because what does Justin Trudeau have to campaign on in the next election? Everybody likes the carbon tax? No, they don't. They've been very vocal about that. He has no pandemic to run on in the next election, right? He can't sit there and talk about medical procedures anymore or getting jabs. So he hasn't built any houses. He's raised taxes. He's caused mass inflation. People can't afford their mortgages because of him and his bad bonds with the Bank of Canada. So he needs these wedge issues so that he has something to talk about. So he has something to virtue signal towards when he runs in the next election, which I think is on its way. It's coming. It's coming in the spring. And I've said it before. I think when you look at, again, Pierre this week with his interviews, with his multiple press conferences, he's been talking about car theft in Toronto. He's been talking a lot about how they're going to put a stop to crime, axing taxes, where he stands with Alberta. Like, all of these little interviews and press conferences tell me that he is locked in on campaign mode. And the rumblings in the House of Commons are we're going to see a spring election. Jagmeet Singh is pushing back a little bit with Justin Trudeau. Not very much, but enough to signify to me that I think we're going to start seeing a little bit of back and forth. I've been watching a lot of the streams on House of Canada. Speaking of Jasper being in the channel, you should really watch those live streams if you're around. It's not only great commentary, but you learn a lot watching those question periods. A lot of people tell me all the time, well, it feels like high school drama, it's just back and forth. But if you look at the body language, if you look at the topics that are being brought up, Jagmeet's always talking about greedy CEOs. There's going to come a turning point. Pierre needs to get Canada out of the WEF, because that's where all the woke crap is coming from. Yeah, I don't think Pierre has any interest in the WEF. I don't think he's going to have anything to do with them. He's already stated that he doesn't want any ministers involved with them. I think we're safe on that end. Time will tell. We'll have to see. What a crazy week it's been in politics, though. It's all been about Pierre, puberty blockers, Putin. It's been a week of peas in Parliament. God, there's a tongue twister for you. Parliament, Putin, puberty blockers, Poilievre. Let's talk about Vladimir Putin. The Liberals are losing their minds. We've seen it with Justin Trudeau's slip up which was glorious, talking about Pierre wanting to make Canada great again, and that's not what Canadians want, apparently. Um, I've talked about it in the videos, and I think I think it's important to address here as well that Justin Trudeau hired, I don't know if it's like a consultant or a PR firm or somebody to remanage the liberal brand, I guess, to rebrand the Liberals to try and clean up their image since their polling numbers are through the toilet. Um, but the one thing they brought in was MAGA. They wanted to bring in the word MAGA, and you'll notice from about December up until now, the word MAGA has been toted around in the House of Commons and in interviews more than anything, and a lot of it against Pierre, saying he's bringing in right-wing MAGA extremist views. That if you vote for Pierre, you're going to see a lot of MAGA style politics. They want to brand Pierre as this Donald Trump wannabe, terrible orange man bad candidate. It's done nothing but help him. I've said it numerous times on the channel. There's nothing wrong with loving your country, and I've never seen an issue with Make America Great Again. I don't see the problem with making Canada great again either. Part of the problem during pandemic and what we saw a resurgence of during the Freedom Convoy was a resurgence in Canadian patriotism. I remember sitting in this home for months while my kids were depressed. We couldn't go anywhere. We had to put face diapers on whenever we went somewhere, and telling my kids, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And I remember every day sitting with my wife because she wasn't allowed to go to her office. She was working in the house. This was like house arrest. I'm sure all of you know what that felt like. But we'd sit around every day and my wife would always say, God, I can't believe this is what the country's turning into. And I kept telling her, it just doesn't feel Canadian. It doesn't feel like my country anymore. And I heard about the convoy. And I remember seeing footage of a bunch of trucks in Calgary at their stop, at their Road King truck stop to meet up and link up for the next leg of the trip. And I didn't really follow a lot of the Freedom Convoy because I wasn't sure the impact it was going to have until I turned on the television and I seen them coming in through a town called Headingley, which is just outside of Winnipeg. And I saw kids talking to the truckers on CB radio, on news reports. You saw people on the sides of the roads with their signs, flooding overpasses, cheering these Canadian heroes parading across the country to put an end to tyranny. And I said to my wife the minute I saw that on television, there it is. That's what it means to be Canadian. It's back. That's what we've been missing for the last year and a half, are these patriots that are willing to stand up for their country with the big Canadian flags on the back of their trucks, going to tell the prime minister, not happening no more. And I remember my daughter turning around. So she was 6 at the time. And she said, Dad, are the truckers going to get our lives back? And I said, I sure hope so. And look what they did. They didn't just end or at least begin the process to end pandemic restrictions, but they reignited the spark of what it means to be Canadian, loving our country. I've talked before about when I went to the United States last summer, and everywhere you go, in Washington State, in Idaho, it's American flags everywhere. License plate holders or frames, flags out in businesses, every restaurant, every business, every shop, American flags flying from everywhere to see. Houses with flagpoles waving American flags. If you went to America, and tried to tell them half the stuff that Justin Trudeau spouts on the people, good luck. You wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get anywhere. Americans are resilient. Even during lockdown, pandemic times, it didn't last very long in most parts of America because they just said, to hell with this. One of the key issues there is that Americans have their guns. They have the right to bear arms. We don't have that right in Canada, and the government's trying to take our guns away from us right now because that's going to be effective. Because if you don't have any guns to defend yourself, well, you can't do anything when the steel boot of the government comes to step on your neck. But it was a reignition of what it meant to be Canadian. So when I hear people in America saying, let's make America great again, and they're waving their flags and they're cheering on Donald Trump, I'm not looking at Donald Trump, even though I like him. I'm going to be honest. I like Donald Trump. I see the flags. I see the care, the love for their country, and say, that's what we need here. So I don't see a problem with making Canada great again. Justin Trudeau seems to, because puts an end to his party. Not his Liberal Party. I'm talking about his party that he's been having for the last 8 years. CB chiming in. Welcome into the stream, buddy. Government sucks. They want my guns. Yeah. Yeah. It's, well, and Vikram's chimed in too. We have no real police. I know. So the city of Calgary has Calgary Police Service, which is it's a private entity. It's not a part of the RCMP. So like in Winnipeg, when I go there to visit, Winnipeg police they drive RCMP vehicles, like police vehicles. Edmonton police, I believe, do the same. I'm not 100% sure. I'm mostly speaking for Calgary, that Calgary has its own privatized police. Why doesn't that happen across the country? Why does every police service have to be tied to the RCMP? That's tied to the corrupt government. That we've seen in Ottawa, that if the government turns around and says, enact the Emergencies Act, they'll just listen and jump on it. I mean, that's crazy. The behavior of the police there is absolutely crazy. By the way, did you guys notice this week Justin Trudeau's office was completely vandalized outside? Smeared in red paint? I don't think anybody vandalized his office during the Freedom Convoy. I didn't hear of the Emergencies Act being enacted this week. Did you guys? The plea deal for the Coots boys was a terrible deal for freedom. Get those asses to admit they were wrong. So, Joe, that is a very good point. And, you know, it's funny because I remember last year at some point, Tamara Leach, who was gracious enough to join us here on stream last week, was offered a plea deal. And I remember her sitting down saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, so I'll apologize to Tamara in advance if I'm not supposed to be talking about this. But she was offered a plea deal and said, I don't know what to do. And I remember sitting with her and saying, listen, you've earned your freedom. If you choose to take that plea deal and end all of this right now, you're more than welcome to. And I, as your friend, will not judge you. And I don't think a lot of Canadians would, because you did what was necessary. You've done your time. If you're ready to throw in the towel and say you just want to get on with your life, you're more than welcome to. And I said, but keep in mind, as soon as you take that plea deal, the government has no ownership of what they did. They don't have to answer or have accountability for what they did to you, throwing you and humiliating you in a jail cell, restricting your life for several years. Now, whatever decision she made was her decision, and she chose not to take the plea deal for whatever reason. And the Coots boys have spent 2 years in jail. So I won't look down on them for taking that plea deal. They could have just been finished. They would have wanted out of there. But the only issue with that plea deal is, again, it strains down that the government, again, cannot face repercussions or accountability for their actions, which is disappointing. But I'm not going to sit here and say that those boys should have remained in jail. That is a decision for them to make. And if they chose that they'd rather be with their families, they'd rather go home to their wives, they've got every right to make that decision, and I stand behind that. And I think that I think they had every right to take their plea deal. And I'm glad to see that they're out. Hopefully, we can see some resolution for the other two. I seen Ezra Levant went under fire this week based on that. Ezra Levant was under the microscope because he was claiming that he paid for the lawyers that were involved in the coots, but then he backed out of that deal and he was taking credit for the Democracy Fund covering legal access, where Jeremy McKenzie and Diagolon had picked up the slack. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of what went on with the Coots boys, but I can tell you one thing. Videos have come out showing Ezra Levant taking in over $4 million with the Democracy Fund and paying staff with that money. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll cover that on the channel. Maybe we'll get a little bit more into that. But you'll remember last week with Tamara, I specifically asked her, is Ezra Levant tied to the Democracy Fund? And her answer was, I think he sits on the board. Now, Tamara doesn't know the ins and outs of the Democracy Fund. And I will state this because the biggest problem with that, the biggest problem now is Tamara and Chris's legal team is being covered by the Democracy Fund as well. And that can look bad on them. And it's a shame because when you look at the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, the JCCF, and all the problems they went through when Keith Wilson left and when Eva Chipiuk left, and people said that they just squandered the money, that they took the money that was donated for the truckers, that Tamara bought a house in Quebec, or she did all these things and got a boob job, and Chris Barber went and did a bunch of stuff with the money buying new trucks or whatever it was. Like, these are stupid things that come out of that discussion. And now with Ezra's feet being held to the fire over this $4 million that he raised from the public sitting in the Democracy Fund, what's that going to spell for Tamara and Chris in their legal battle? Because people may end up blaming Tamara and Chris for taking that money. I don't know if people are aware of this or know this. Legal cases, court proceedings are very costly. Any kind of legal matter in court is extremely, extremely expensive. Lawyers aren't cheap. The process isn't cheap. And this has been drawn out for 2 years. This was a legal case that was supposed to be dealt with back in October. Open and closed. That's what the government said. It's an open and shut case. Well, they had nothing to present, and it's been stalled again and again and again. Tamara's due back in court March 13th. All of that costs money. Now, I can tell you right now, I know for a fact Tamara and Chris Barber are not in a position to say, yeah, no problem, I'll cover that. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know about you guys, but if I was under the same kind of duress that Tamara and Chris are in terms of legal complications with the rest of their lives, I'd be very grateful if anyone stepped in and said, we're going to get you a lawyer and we're going to cover those costs. I'd breathe a deep sigh of relief. So no matter what happens with Ezra, I just hope, I guess, that the public realizes that this isn't something that Chris and Tamara are tied into. They simply were offered assistance and took it. So please, please do not associate them with Ezra's mistakes. I don't know what Ezra does in his business. Again, maybe we'll cover it when I have some more information or a little bit more knowledge on the subject, but I know a lot of people were mad this week. I know he was trending on Twitter over it at one point. So maybe we cover that on the channel. I don't know. Raging Against the Machine saying Ezra should be audited. Maybe he will be now. You know, when this comes out, all this information came out, maybe he will be audited. It's not for me to say. I've met the people at Rebel News, and I don't want to talk bad about people at Rebel because I've met Sheila Gunn Reid, I've met Adam Sos, I've met a few people that work there. Alexa Lavoie has interviewed me multiple times whenever our books have dropped, and I've got no problem with any of them. In fact, I quite enjoy what they have to bring to the table. So believe me, when I bring up these things, it's more as an informative process. I'm certainly not judging them, and I don't want to make any waves for them at the same time, but you still got to keep people in the know as to what's going on. Did they know? Are you talking about Tamara and Chris? No, I don't think they knew. Tamara and Chris go to court unless you're meaning the reporters, Aaron, but Tamara and Chris go to court and their lawyer shows up. That's it. They're just told the costs are going to be covered. They don't have any discussions about money. They don't talk about money. They don't anything. They just shake hands and say thank you for the help. And they get on with what they're due for. If you're talking about the reporters, I don't know if they knew. I don't think they would, because Ezra's in charge. When you go to your job, do you know everything about your boss and their money? Probably not. Right? Congrats on your numbers this week. We're all rooting for you. Yo, Joe, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Again, the numbers have been insane this week. I can't tell you guys how grateful I am to see. Like, I used to be happy when I looked at my YouTube a couple months ago and say, wow, I've hit 250,000 views in a month. That's awesome. And we've done that almost in a week now. Like, it's insane how fast things are ramping up. And the fact that people want to come here and listen to what yours truly has to say, I'm forever grateful. I'm very blessed to have all 200 plus of you watching the show tonight in the stream. So thank you for that. Romanian Patriot, how's the other channel coming? So I do want to get to that. That other channel, I've talked about doing another channel with gaming and talking about culture war stuff and more like the kind of like the quartering and stuff like that. And it is coming. My next channel, Missing Context, is still in the works. I've actually jumped on doing a side project or a side hustle with some friends on their YouTube project right now. So between trying to finish our next book, which is a parody of Green Eggs and Ham called Just Axe the Tax. I'm on the way of getting that finished and sent off to my illustrator. I'm talking mayoral stuff now because of this whole Jody Gondek recall, as well as managing all the content on YouTube with the House of Commons being back in. It all works into this giant snowball that I'm trying to get things done. I finally got overlays and things like that I wanted done from people I'd hired to make graphics for the channel. It is coming. It will be coming soon. Thank you to everybody who's waiting on that. It just adds more work to the to the table. So I'm hoping next weekend my wife's going to go away for a day with the kids to my mother-in-law's for a winter festival. So I'm actually hoping during that day to get caught up on some work. So maybe we can roll that out. But it is on its way. So thank you for asking about that. And it is coming. Frank's chimed in. I never liked Ezra and his my shit don't stink attitude. I get it. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Ezra face to face. The people at Rebel have told me he's a fan of what I do and things like that. That's great. I'm honored. But there's always been something from watching him that I get a feeling. Now, he could be a different person in person. I'm not going to smear somebody I haven't met personally. But hey, that's where we are. Oh, just Tamara and Chris was what your curious. No, I don't think they know. They don't know anything about money being raised or where it goes. They ask for help with fundraising because they understand the costs of a legal battle, but they leave all of that with Ezra's people and the Democracy Fund. Basically, what Tamara and Chris are trying to do right now is just go to court, get it over with, and then move on to the next court case. Because don't forget, Paul Champ still has that provincial case going on with Zexi Lee against the Freedom Convoy. Like, this isn't going to end for Tamara and Chris anytime soon. So I know they're just grateful to have the help, and they're grateful to know that, you know, they don't essentially have to take a deal and run themselves into bankruptcy. They want the same thing as the rest of us. They want the government to take accountability. And that's why they're sitting through this court case. And that's why they're fighting still, because ultimately their work isn't done. They feel that they're not done. They feel that justice hasn't been served. So the best we can do right now is support them as people. And I'm going to tell you right now, anybody who says that Tamara's just grifting for money or that she's corrupt or it's all about don't buy into the lies. And that, look, I've known Tamara for over a year personally. I've spent a lot of time with her as well as Chris Barber, getting to know them as people. And I can tell you right now, they are some of the nicest, friendliest people I've ever met in my life. There's not too many people on this planet I trust, like fully trust, but I definitely trust the two of them. They're decent human beings, and they really just deserve our thanks and our respect. And I can tell you right now, anytime you hear about corruption, that's all just word salad getting thrown around. It's a nothing burger. I stand behind Chris and Tamara, and until something comes up that shows definitive proof that they're doing otherwise, I don't buy into the lies. Kabooble jumping in, Paul Chump. Yeah, that's exactly what he is. Mystical saying, I met Ezra 3 times. He's outwardly friendly, but I never had more than a brief chat with him. Yeah, and that's the thing is, I don't know Ezra, and I can't speak upon him the same way I can for somebody like Tamara. You guys seen it last weekend. Tamara was here. There's numerous times Tamara's come to my house. Her and her husband stick around. They stay sometimes for a weekend. We have a few drinks. We have some laughs. Um, we went to Jordan Peterson together last year. Like, we do things. I've always said Tamara's just kind of become a part of our family. My kids call her Auntie Freedom whenever she comes around. So, I mean, she's joined our family almost, and we're very grateful to have her around. And I'm grateful to have her as such a great and amazing friend. Um, I never would have thought in a million years, watching the Freedom Convoy videos and live broadcasts while it was happening on the ground, that one day I'd be sitting down with that woman and becoming very close friends with her. And I think that is the greatest success that came out of anything I've done since last summer. Is that I don't care about success with books, running for mayor, getting to meet a true Canadian patriot like Tamara, who has got her mind in the purest of states. She just wants to help people. You don't meet people like that anymore. You don't see people like that anymore. I'm sure everybody who sits in this stream has good intentions, in their day-to-day lives. But I'm saying that to meet somebody who's really, what is it the Joker says about Batman? Uncorruptible. Um, I don't want to sound like I'm gushing on Tamara. I'm just saying that it baffles me, because usually you can see somebody who's friendly and nice, and then you get them like alone and you're sitting talking about things or shooting ideas back and forth, and somebody might say something where you go, there's the real person. But you don't get that with Tamara. What you see on camera is what you get in real life. And it's the same with Chris Barber. The guy's just a hardworking trucker. Uh, just wants to get back to his family life. He's a nice guy. Huge. Towers over you. I'm worried he's going to step on me because I'm a short guy, but it's it's crazy. Chris saying, is Derek giving back to the community? No, you've got me confused with another YouTuber that likes to crack a few and give back to his community. Unfortunately, on the weekends, the whole reason we moved this stream to Friday nights is because I'm looking to get more time with my wife and kids. Sundays were usually spent doing the next week's videos, as well as sitting down to do our Sunday night weekly wrap. So I decided, hey, you know what? Let's move to Friday nights, and then I can be done for the week, and I can have the whole weekend with my kids and my wife. So unfortunately, after the stream, I'll be taking care of a few business things, and then I'll be spending a bit of time with my kids before they go to bed. Family's got to come first, and that's been something of a juggling act since getting into all of this work when it comes to, because don't forget, I'm not just YouTubing, doing a lot of different things. So trying to keep up has been a bit of a challenge. I get the impression that Tamara's a genuine person. I'm like, Trudeau. Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. Steffi coming in, Friday night is so much better. I appreciate that. I'm enjoying. Excuse me, I'm almost getting the hiccups. I'm enjoying being here with you guys. Friday nights, it's kind of nice. It's nice to be in this space. We discussed it because, again, other people broadcast on Fridays, but when I talked about it with other people last week, they said, look, that space isn't owned. It's not it's not taken. There's no license to broadcast on a certain day of the week. So I said, hey, let's do that. Let's get into Friday nights. I think it's going to be great. And it's been great so far. It's great to see all of you chiming in and coming into the stream. We've got Stinger coming in. Fridays are much better. There we go. Roman Patriot Friday Night Fringe has a really good ring to it. And I don't know, I can't remember who suggested that in the chat when it came down to that, but I'm very appreciative of that, and very appreciative of each and every one of you for coming into the stream. Before I wrap things up here this week, we're going to be getting a little bit more into what's going on in the House of Commons. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. Just a friendly reminder for folks, unacceptablefringebooks.com is going down as of February 25th. Again, folks, we have very limited supply left for autographed books shipped direct from me. They're on clearance to get them out of my inventory. So if you want to head over to unacceptablefringebooks.com, now is the time to pick up any of our books that you want autographed before they run out. And if you don't by the 25th, the site will be shut down, and there will be no more signed books. It's the best way you can support the channel, I can tell you that. If you're not into those things, well, becoming a channel member helps. I hate doing these shills, but I like to put it out there so everybody knows. Once a month, starting next Friday, I'm going to be giving away via draw um, one of 3 copies I have of our Unacceptable Fringe book, Hold the Line, The Ballad of Tamara Leach, which has been autographed by Tamara, and it will be signed by myself as well. And I'll be giving that away to one lucky channel member. All you have to do to get in that draw is become a member of the channel. Again, it supports the channel, and it gives back to everybody in some way or form. And speaking of giving back, Chris was welcome enough to reach out from Straight Goods Clothing to let me know our new limited shirt is launching next week from Unacceptable Fringe's property line. So keep your eyes out for that. It's a doozy. All I'm going to say is it involves Justin and tampons. But I will be giving away one of those shirts once a month as well to one lucky member here on the channel. Again, if you want to get in on those draws, all you have to do is be a member of the channel. And we'll pick one lucky member each month to give away one of those shirts. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so grateful you guys came around for the stream tonight. This was a very successful Friday night stream. I'm very happy to have you guys here. I leave the plugs for the end of the show because I don't want to chase people out. I don't want you to feel like I'm throwing that on you guys. I'm just trying to keep you informative because when that site comes down and people say, hey, I can't buy those books anymore, you can still find them on Amazon, but coming direct, that's it. They're shut down. Nada. No mas. So enjoy, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you again for the incredible week, and I'm looking forward to everything I'm going to bring you starting on Monday. Guess what? We are also in the shorts business now. I'll have some shorts lined up for you this week or this weekend over the channel in my absence from Sunday night streams, and I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Thank you again to everybody who came in tonight, everybody who spent time here. It was my pleasure to spend the evening with you on this Friday night